in,
Should we talk
and you
about
just
the
never
part
know who it
impression?
is, and it was like the crazy
Well,
mix.
we were
And now,
told that it was totally cool to post. And then after it was posted, I think they realized it was Remembrance Day and they didn't want to be seen at a party, even though it's already up.
Fresh scrutiny has emerged around Meghan Markle following reports that tensions flared behind the scenes after Kim Kardashian publicly explained why photographs
this was
featuring
so
the
And they did
silly.
baby to
Duchess of
baby right
Sussex
before.
Well,
They
it's
did
like a
everything
charity
with it.
event, so like
high-profile
that was
social
fine.
media post. According to multiple media insiders cited by US and UK entertainment reporters, the issue was not the removal of the images itself, but the framing of the explanation, one that reportedly clashed with Meghan Markle's carefully managed public narrative. The controversy traces back to birthday celebrations linked to Kris Jenner, where photos of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry briefly appeared online before being deleted. The removal sparked online speculation, but it was Kim Kardashian's calm and straightforward explanation on a podcast that intensified the situation. Kardashian explained that permission had initially been granted to share the images, but once Remembrance Day optics were considered, the decision was made to take them down out of respect. From a public relations perspective, the explanation was simple, neutral, and non-confrontational. However, sources familiar with the matter say Meghan Markle reacted strongly once it became clear that the explanation would not be reframed in more complex or emotionally sensitive terms. One insider described the response as panic-driven, suggesting the concern centered on loss of narrative control rather than factual disagreement. Media analysts note that this incident highlights a recurring issue for the Sussexes: the challenge of balancing strict message control with the unpredictability of third-party platforms. In contrast to Meghan's reputation for tightly curated storytelling, Kim Kardashian's approach leaned into transparency and humor, an approach that played well with audiences but reportedly caused frustration behind the scenes. According to entertainment reporters, Meghan is said to have contacted Kris Jenner directly, not to dispute what was said, but to express dissatisfaction with how casually the situation had been portrayed. The concern, sources say, was that Kardashian's explanation implied a lack of foresight rather than a carefully orchestrated decision, a perception Meghan has historically sought to avoid. What made the situation more complicated was Kardashian's suggestion that the moment could have been handled lightly, even humorously. While that tone aligns with the Kardashian brand, insiders say it clashed sharply with Meghan's preference for seriousness and symbolism. The contrast underscored a fundamental difference in media strategy between the two camps. Public reaction, meanwhile, remained relatively muted, with many viewers accepting Kardashian's explanation at face value. For observers of royal media dynamics, the episode served as a reminder that not all celebrity ecosystems operate under the same rules, and that narrative control becomes far more difficult once external voices enter the story. As one media strategist put it, this wasn't a scandal, it was an optics lesson. And sometimes, honesty lands harder than spin. As the controversy surrounding deleted photos and media optics continued to ripple through entertainment circles, Meghan Markle found herself facing a separate but potentially more damaging challenge: questions surrounding the commercial performance of her lifestyle brand and its relationship with Netflix. According to reports first published by U.S. tabloids and later amplified across social media and entertainment news platforms, unsold products associated with Meghan Markle's lifestyle venture were allegedly being stored at Netflix's Los Angeles offices. Sources claimed that multiple storage rooms contained items including jars of jam, candles, wine, and specialty food products, with some employees reportedly helping themselves to the merchandise. While neither Netflix nor Meghan Markle has publicly confirmed the details, the optics of the story have proven difficult to contain. Media analysts say the issue is not simply whether products were given away, but what the narrative signals about demand, distribution, and brand positioning, especially for a venture repeatedly described by its founder as selective, premium, and carefully curated. From a business standpoint, celebrity-backed lifestyle brands often rely on scarcity and aspiration to maintain value. Reports suggesting excess inventory, even if exaggerated, undermine that positioning. One branding expert told U.S. entertainment media that luxury is as much about perception as it is about product. Once the perception of surplus enters the conversation, it's hard to reverse. The Netflix connection adds another layer of complexity. Since the Sussexes signed their multi-million-dollar deal with the streaming giant, every project associated with the partnership has been closely scrutinized. For supporters, the deal symbolized creative independence and long-term opportunity. For critics, it became a benchmark against which every outcome is measured. Insiders quoted in entertainment reporting suggest the presence of unsold products at Netflix facilities has been interpreted by some as a cooling of enthusiasm behind the scenes. While there is no evidence that Netflix formally distributed the items, the mere suggestion that staff were taking products for free has fueled speculation that the brand has struggled to gain traction beyond its initial launch buzz. This speculation has been particularly potent because it clashes with the public messaging surrounding the brand. Meghan Markle has consistently framed her business ventures as values-driven, purpose-led, and well-received. Any indication that demand has fallen short creates a visible disconnect between narrative and reality, a gap that critics are quick to exploit. Media commentators also note that Meghan's business challenges come at a time when celebrity saturation is at an all-time high. Consumers are increasingly selective, and association with fame alone is no longer enough to guarantee success. In recent years, several high-profile celebrity brands, across beauty, wellness, and lifestyle sectors, have faced similar struggles after early hype faded. At the same time, critics argue that Meghan's public persona complicates the commercial equation. Her strong emphasis on control, symbolism, and messaging, effective in advocacy spaces, may prove less adaptable in fast-moving consumer markets, where flexibility and responsiveness are often key. The reports also reopened debate about the Sussexes' broader post-royal strategy. Since stepping back from official royal duties, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have positioned themselves as independent media figures operating at the intersection of activism, entertainment, and commerce. While this approach initially generated global attention, sustaining momentum has proven more difficult. Adding to the pressure are parallel narratives involving Prince Harry himself, including questions raised online about highly produced promotional content, from sporting appearances to lifestyle endorsements, that some critics claim appear overly staged or technologically enhanced. Together, these narratives have contributed to a growing perception that authenticity, once a core selling point, is being tested. Industry analysts caution, however, against overstating the impact of tabloid reporting. Lifestyle brands often experience uneven sales cycles, and product distribution strategies vary widely. Without transparent data, it remains impossible to confirm whether the reported surplus reflects failure, overproduction, or routine logistical storage. Still, perception matters. In the modern media ecosystem, stories gain power not through confirmation alone, but through repetition and resonance. For Meghan Markle, the convergence of optics controversies, brand questions, and heightened scrutiny has created a challenging environment, one where even minor missteps risk being amplified into broader narratives about decline. As one media strategist summarized, this isn't about jam or photos. It's about trust, and whether the public believes the story they're being told. As scrutiny around Meghan Markle's brand and media strategy intensified, attention began shifting toward Prince Harry himself, particularly around a series of recent public appearances and promotional visuals that sparked fresh debate about authenticity, image management, and the modern use of digital enhancement in celebrity storytelling. One such moment emerged from footage circulating online that appeared to show Prince Harry surfing at a controlled facility in California. The clip, promoted as a light-hearted glimpse into Harry's California lifestyle, was initially framed by some outlets as a positive, aspirational moment, a royal-turned-private citizen embracing a new chapter. However, online reaction quickly took a different turn. Social media users, media commentators, and even some royal watchers questioned whether the footage was entirely organic. Critics pointed to the unusually polished visuals, the framing, and Harry's posture on the board as reasons to suspect heavy editing or digital enhancement. While no evidence has surfaced to confirm the use of artificial intelligence, the speculation itself became a story, illustrating how public trust can erode once audiences begin questioning what they are seeing. For media analysts, the episode underscores a broader challenge facing the Sussexes: the fine line between professional production and perceived inauthenticity. In an era where AI-assisted visuals are increasingly common, even legitimate content can trigger skepticism if it appears overly curated. "The problem isn't whether the footage was altered," said one digital media consultant quoted in commentary surrounding the clip. "The problem is that audiences are primed to doubt anything that looks too perfect." This skepticism did not emerge in isolation. It coincided with growing criticism of what some observers describe as a highly commercialized post-royal strategy, one in which every public appearance appears tied to branding, partnerships, or broader narrative goals. From book promotions to docuseries and lifestyle ventures, critics argue that spontaneity has been replaced by production. Supporters counter that such polish is inevitable given the global scrutiny faced by the Sussexes. They point out that nearly every public figure at that level relies on teams of photographers, videographers, and editors. Still, the comparison frequently drawn is not with Hollywood celebrities, but with other members of the British royal family, a contrast that continues to shape public expectations. That contrast became particularly visible as broader royal news dominated headlines. Developments linked to the release of new documents related to Jeffrey Epstein once again placed the monarchy under intense global scrutiny, forcing senior royals into uncomfortable public moments. During an overseas engagement, Prince Edward was directly questioned by a journalist about the issue, a rare departure from tightly controlled royal appearances. His response, cautious and measured, was widely analyzed. While Edward eventually emphasized the importance of focusing on victims, his initial attempt to redirect the conversation drew criticism from commentators who argued that the public's expectations around transparency have shifted. Royal analysts note that moments like these highlight the structural differences between working royals and the Sussexes. While the former operate within an institution designed to absorb controversy, the latter face scrutiny without the buffer of palace machinery, making every misstep more exposed. The resurfacing of Epstein-related revelations also reignited debate around Prince Andrew's past and the long-term implications for the monarchy. Commentators suggested that ongoing revelations risk disrupting routine royal engagements and complicating efforts to refocus public attention on charitable work and institutional reform. In this context, speculation about the future of the monarchy intensified. Biographers and royal experts debated whether Prince William, often portrayed as cautious and family-focused, is eager to assume the throne. Some argue he represents a quieter, more restrained vision of kingship, one shaped by lessons learned from decades of public scrutiny. These discussions indirectly affect the Sussexes as well. Observers have long speculated about how a future reign under King William might redefine royal roles, titles, and public expectations. For Harry and Meghan, who have built their post-royal identity in contrast to the institution they left behind, such changes could carry symbolic weight. Media strategists say this convergence of narratives, brand questions, authenticity debates, royal accountability, and institutional uncertainty, has created a uniquely challenging environment for the Sussexes. Unlike earlier controversies, these stories are less about personal conflict and more about credibility. "The issue now is cumulative," one analyst noted. "Each story reinforces the next, and once audiences start questioning authenticity, every polished image becomes suspect." As public attention continues to shift, the Sussexes face a familiar but increasingly complex dilemma: how to maintain control over their narrative while operating in a media ecosystem that rewards transparency, imperfection, and trust over precision. As the latest cycle of media scrutiny unfolds, the stories surrounding Meghan Markle and Prince Harry reflect a broader shift in how celebrity, credibility, and influence are measured in the modern public sphere. What once generated instant attention through novelty now faces a more skeptical, saturated audience, one less inclined to accept curated narratives at face value. For Meghan Markle, the convergence of recent headlines has been particularly challenging. Reports of behind-the-scenes frustration over media framing, questions about brand performance, and renewed debate over image management have combined into a single, recurring theme: control versus credibility. Analysts suggest that this tension has become central to public perception of the Duchess of Sussex's post-royal life. Since stepping away from official royal duties, Meghan and Harry have attempted to redefine their roles on their own terms, blending activism, entertainment, and commerce. Initially, this approach resonated with a global audience eager for fresh perspectives. High-profile deals, media appearances, and carefully crafted messaging helped establish the Sussexes as influential voices beyond the monarchy. However, sustaining that influence has proven more complex. Media experts point out that credibility in the current environment is less about scale and more about consistency. When messaging, optics, and outcomes appear misaligned, even slightly, public trust can erode quickly. The Sussexes' relationship with major platforms such as Netflix remains a focal point of speculation. While the partnership initially symbolized creative freedom and independence, each subsequent report is now assessed through a more critical lens. Successes are often understated, while setbacks, real or perceived, receive disproportionate attention. At the same time, Prince Harry's evolving public image continues to draw debate. From advocacy work to lifestyle-focused appearances, his transition from senior royal to private citizen has placed him in unfamiliar territory. Without the institutional framework of the monarchy, every project stands on its own merits, and every miscalculation is amplified. Royal watchers also note that the broader context matters. Ongoing developments involving senior members of the royal family, including renewed scrutiny tied to historical controversies, have shifted public attention toward questions of accountability and transparency. In this climate, comparisons between working royals and the Sussexes are unavoidable, even when circumstances differ significantly. Looking ahead, some analysts believe the Sussexes face a strategic crossroad. One option is recalibration, simplifying messaging, reducing overproduction, and leaning into a more restrained public presence. Another is doubling down on existing strategies, relying on loyal supporters and high-profile partnerships to maintain relevance. Neither path guarantees success. Celebrity culture is increasingly unforgiving, and audiences are more discerning than ever. As one branding consultant observed, influence today is earned in fragments. It's fragile, and it resets constantly. Yet it would be premature to declare decline. Meghan Markle remains one of the most recognizable figures in the world, and Prince Harry continues to command global attention. Their ability to generate conversation, positive or negative, remains undeniable. The challenge lies in converting attention into long-term trust. For the British monarchy, the moment also carries implications. As it navigates generational change, public scrutiny, and evolving expectations, the contrast between institutional continuity and individual reinvention has never been clearer. How that balance is struck in the years ahead may define not only the monarchy's future, but also the legacy of those who chose to step away from it. In the end, the current moment may be less about scandal and more about transition. For Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the spotlight has not dimmed, but it has sharpened. And in a media landscape that rewards authenticity over perfection, the coming chapters may prove decisive.